Many people just think they can go to the gym, lift some weights, and magically build a strong and defined body. In order to reach your body goals, you have to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Today, we're going to be reviewing the book Starting Strength Basic Barbell Training by Mark Rippetoe. This book is known to be the best and most useful of fitness books, and I agree 100% with this statement. You will learn why you should use barbell movements instead of machines and the top 5 exercises to build strength and muscle. The book starts out explaining how we have become less functional than ever before. Humans had to be physical, active in order to survive. There was no way around it. As times changed, we became less and less active, creating all sorts of problems. It states that the only way we can become functional again like the cavemen were, we have to exercise to make our bodies and our minds function normally in this day and age. Why barbells? Mark Rippetoe explains that machines places people into fixed movements, which is not the best approach when trying to build muscle and strength. He explains that the body works in a complete system and likes to be worked that way. The body does not like to be trained separately, since the strength obtained from isolation movements will not be used this way. The body should be trained in a way where strength will be used. For example, if you pick up a heavy box from the ground, the glutes, the hamstrings, the low back, the quads are all involved in the lift. What a machine does is separates a single muscle group, for example the quads, and trains them individually. Now, back to the box example. When you pick it up, you won't only use the quads, so it's not a good idea to focus on isolation movements to acquire strength and build solid muscle. In other words, focus on barbell exercises since they allow weights to be moved in the exact way the body is designed to move. Also, many athletes make the mistake of making straight movements look like they're sport movements. For example, practicing on throwing a light dumbbell to throw a baseball harder. By doing this, building strength has become a secondary consideration. According to Mark, the best approach to get better on any sport is to acquire strength and power in ways that best develop strength and power, not in ways that look like the sport. You do this by using multi-joint exercises like the ones we will cover in this video. The squat. The squat is the single most useful exercise in the weight room. It's the best full range of motion exercise that is the most valuable tool for building strength, power, and muscle. This exercise is the only movement that allows direct training of a pattern known as hip drive. Mark defines it as the active recruitment of muscles of the posterior chain. The posterior chain refers to the muscles that causes hip extension, the straightening out of the hip joint from its flex or bent position in the bottom of the squat. These muscles are the hamstrings, glutes, and adductors. You want to have strong hip extensors because they are responsible for jumping, pushing, pulling, or any other lower body movement. The squat also takes advantage of the stretch reflex when done properly, which studies have showed that muscles contract harder when using proper stretch reflex on a given exercise. The only way to get these muscles strong is by properly performing the squat, that is, using hip drive. You do this by shoving up the area right above your butt out of the bottom of the squat. When you do this, you are properly training the muscles in the posterior chain. The squat can be done by anyone who can sit in a chair. The squat that Mark Rippetoe talks about in this book is the low bar squat. This movement is different from the traditional high bar squat that you see most people doing at the gym. The low bar squat is superior than the high bar squat due to the back angle it produces, which requires more muscle involvement. In the high bar squat, there's more emphasis on the quads than on the hamstrings due to the back being more vertical. In the high bar squat, the bar sits higher on the back, sits on top of the traps, while the low bar squat sits lower on the back and sits under the bone you feel at the top of your shoulder blades. When you do a low bar squat, there's equal amount of force and muscle involvement of the quads and hamstrings. Also, the low back is involved more in this movement since you are using hip drive instead of pushing with your knees to move the weight. In return, more muscle is involved in the lift and heavier weights can be moved. This happens because the lower the bar is on the back, the more horizontal the back angle can be, thus keeping the bar balanced over the middle of your foot. Simply put, the further forward the knees are, the more quads will be involved. The farther back the hips, the more muscle you utilize. The press, also called the overhead press or military press. Mark defines the press as a movement performed while standing whereby a weight is extended to arm's length overhead with the use of the shoulders and the arms only. The press is an important exercise when building up your upper body strength. This movement benefits those who pushes against an opponent, throw an implement, or transmits force to an object. This is because these movements start at the feet against the ground. The press is not only a shoulder and arm movement, it also requires the hips and the legs. This movement strains the abs, intercostals, back, shoulders, and arms. This movement uses more nervous system activity than any other exercise. For simple upper body strength, the bench press is superior than the press, but adding both to your routine decreases the chances of injuries in the shoulders. Doing this exercise also trains the muscles that are used for throwing, like the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor. which are considered part of the external rotation. Since the press strains the shoulders, the key to shoulder health as an adult or athlete is to press correctly and having it in your routine. The press is a very demanding lift and it's really hard to do with heavy weights, but the benefits are amazing. The deadlift. The deadlift requires the production of force from a dead stop, which is why it's called the deadlift. The deadlift strains the abs, obliques, intercostals, and all posterior muscles of the upper back and lower back. The deadlift is a simple movement. The bar is pulled from the ground with straight arms and up the legs until the knees, hips, and shoulders are locked out. The deadlift is a very taxing lift and if done improperly can cause serious injury to the back. If done properly, it can add strength to your back and keep it healthy as you age. This exercise also increases your squat. It's also a good movement when you have an injury from squatting since it trains similar muscles. This movement differs from the squat in the way that it does not have the benefit from the stretch reflex. It requires the lifter to generate enough explosiveness to break the bar off the floor and get it to lock out. A lot of leg power can be acquired by deadlifting, but the difficult part is maintaining a tight back when lifting heavy. Another limiting factor is hand strength. It's a better idea to use a double hand grip than the alternating grip because the double hand grip places symmetrical stress on the shoulders. Alternate grip should only be used on really heavy weights, but it does place uneven stress on the shoulders and can cause injuries to the bicep. So, use it when your grip is the weak factor on a certain weight. Mark recommends to use straps if you're not planning to compete. He also recommends to use chalk to protect your hands from excessive calluses, which can be painful when deadlifting. He does not recommend to use gloves at all because it makes the bar harder to hold on to. Only use gloves when you have a torn callus or a cut. If you still want to use gloves, Mark says for you to make sure they match your purse. The bench press. The bench press works the triceps, biceps, forearms, upper back, and lats. Legs, lower back, and hips are also involved in the lift if you use proper leg drive. The bench press also makes your neck grow, but if done correctly. Primary movers being the chest and the anterior deltoids. Like stated before, for basic upper body strength, the bench press is better than the overhead press, but doing both keeps your shoulders healthy. Be careful on how you bench. Scapula has to be retracted the entire time and make sure your elbows are tucked in slightly or else you risk the chances of shoulder impingement. Number one cause of injury during this lift. Make sure to keep an arch on your lower back and butt should always remain intact with the bench. Mark recommends to have a spotter when bench pressing heavy or at least bench press on a squat rack with the pins set at proper height. The power clean. They call this movement by this name because the term clean refers to the ability to clear the bar off the ground without soiling the bar by touching the body when the bar is coming up. Mark says that the nature of sport is explosive, so doing the power clean will allow an athlete to accelerate at faster rates. The clean requires the lifter to pull the bar fast and high enough by using power generated at the hips and legs to catch the bar on the shoulders. Once the feet lose contact with the floor, no more force can be applied to the bar. Once the feet are away from the ground, the bar is moving up as fast as it's going to. The bar keeps traveling upward until it's catched on the shoulders due to inertia. The faster the bar comes up, the higher the bar can go. You can increase your clean by increasing your deadlift. The power clean is known to be the best way to increase the ability to explode, which is a valuable tool when training for sports like soccer, football, basketball, etc. This movement depends on a person's ability to recruit high number of motor units as quickly as possible when they manage to do so, and it's largely controlled by genetics. This means that some athletes have a greater advantage being more explosive due to their genetics. This does not mean you will always have a weak clean, but it does mean that you have to work harder than a person who is gifted with the genetics to recruit high number of motor units. In general, if you would like to become a better athlete, this is a must-do exercise. Now, this book also has a section for programming these lifts, but for the sake of time, I'll provide a link to a recent video I made talking about programming and other useful information to help you build muscle and strength. Alright guys, thanks for taking the time and God bless. Write down in the comments if you would like more book reviews relating fitness. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and let your Spanish speaking friends about my Spanish YouTube channel which covers the same content. Link will be in the description. Till next time.